Is there anything you would have done differently now in historical perspective in organizing it, and setting up the society?
I think we might have, I've thought about that. I think we might have done some write-ups in the, like, Antique Week and the Main Antique Digest and, you know, some of the publications.
Well, honey, we did.
We did?
We sent articles in a number of times. They never got
Oh, I didn't
printed.
know that.
Yeah, well, you probably had forgotten. They printed some of the notices of our upcoming meetings, but they would hardly ever write up anything that we sent them about a meeting that was already held.
Well, no, I meant about the actual founding. I don't think we sent that information
we probably
to publications.
could have given it more information.
Yeah, I think that, you know.
And we could have. I certainly would have tried to stay in touch with members better if I could have. At one time, of course, we knew everybody in the society almost by name. Almost. Some people would come in and be new members, and they'd come to a meeting, and we'd meet them for the first time. And if they didn't come back, then we'd sort of forget about them. But it was so small in the early days that it was fun that you knew everybody. You'd know everybody in the room, or you just met them and felt that you knew them. At least if they would come to the meetings, you'd know them. And I would always try to make a point to write. If people would go off the board, their term would expire, I'd make a point to write a little note to them, thank them for their service. Always thank a speaker for coming, and things like which you just do normally. But as the time went on, and then the group got bigger, and then of course there was no reason necessarily for me to write to them anymore because I wasn't in office any longer. I sort of lost track. I used to go to, in the early days, I'd stand at the door at meetings, and I'd shake everybody's hand, they'd come in, just like a politician almost, because, you know, it just was something that was fun to do, and you'd meet the people. But I didn't feel it was my point to stand at a door after I was no longer president and greet people. So
it would have been a little strange.
I didn't, and really nobody else did either in those days.
Well, that's not quite the
But,
question. Have you thought of anything you think we should have done differently?
There was probably a lot of things. If I'd sit down and analyze it, you always can improve stuff you do.
But specifically?
Well, we had a hard time learning how to use a computer in the early days. My first flyer we did on the typewriter, and that was one thing because I was used to using a typewriter, and if you'd move a typewriter a certain way, you could do a column. But on a computer, I had a difficult time. Joe had won a computer in a raffle at school for what?
For the Worthington Education Scholarship Fund.
Oh, okay.
They had a raffle.
And she won a Mac Plus computer. And this was, way back.
Oh, it was something.
So after I retired in 1992, I asked Joe if I could get that computer out because she hadn't even opened the box. She had a couple years. So I got it out and started to work with it, and it was terrible. And of course, now Mac was easy to use, but I didn't understand anything at all about it in the beginning.
You can tell we're not into technology.
But eventually, I was able to get a news journal, or a flyer at first, and then news journal in a format that I could take to Kinko's, and they were my printer. They did a good job of what you take them. In fact, I even had them do a little bit of formatting in the beginning, and then that became too expensive. I thought we should learn how to do it, and then I wouldn't have to, we wouldn't have to pay that. And that was, I I don't know what I could have done about that, except probably not have, it wouldn't have been as much fun, I guess, if I had tormented myself with it. Because after I finally did learn a little bit about it, it was satisfying to be able to publish something. But as the ins and outs and the strategies and things, I'm sure we could have publicized it more. I had an idea at one time of preparing a package to have available to anybody who would want it. That what we would do would be to have some pre-printed questions and answers, and have some background material to give to anybody who would be willing to go into their local library and say, I'd be willing to put on a program sometime about early American patterned glass if you think anybody would be interested, thinking perhaps that libraries are always interested in things like that from time to time, that person then could install him or herself sort of as a local source of information for early American patterned glass, and thereby, of course, the society too, and could maybe even volunteer to write columns in local paper or something of that nature. But I never could get anybody interested in that, and finally gave it up and didn't pursue it. I kind of think sometimes that I should have persevered in that a little bit, that we could have done something with it.
Other than that, has your expectations pretty well been met for what? I know when you started the society, you had a certain expectation of what it's going to be. Did it pretty well pan out? Did you really
I
met?
think so.
Oh,
I think
yes.
so.
My goodness,
Oh,
I'd
yes.
say better than I really
Oh, yeah.
dared hope that it would. Of course, we hoped that it would, and we had a concept of what we wanted to bring about, but that doesn't always make it happen. And so it really worked along the lines that we thought it probably would.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it really did, we were very, very pleased.
Did you ever give a thought? It just crossed my mind where you would have been without the Harrisburg show.
Oh,
I mean,
gosh,
that
I
seems to
never
be the
thought
catalyst,
about it.
Yeah.
I've
Without
never-
that, there would have been any glue to hold it together to even start.
I don't know what we would have done if there hadn't been a
Gosh,
Harrisburg
that's a
show.
good question, Jim.
Because that was our whole battle plan.
And the collectors are still there, but that was the one.
Right.
Yeah, and we knew eventually that we should leave the Harrisburg show. That not every annual meeting in the history of the society could go on being at the Harrisburg show every year. But as long as for the first number of years, it almost had to be. And then, of course, the concept of the regional shows came along, which we were very pleased to see that develop. That was one of our hopes from the beginning, that this would take root as people would join the society. They would have these regional get-togethers, and some of them did, and some of them have been very successful, and it's pleasing to see that takes place.